Welcome everybody to February's Tank of the Month. Today we'll be visiting David Guchereau in Madisonville, Louisiana. David has a beautiful SPS dominated reef tank and another fish-only tank that hosts 3 large angels. He experiments to see which corals the angels will actually eat. Let's go visit David. All right, David, thank you so much for welcoming us into your home and looking at your wonderful tank. Tell me a little bit about your background and what got you into reef keeping.
So my background, I've actually been in the hobby about 35 years. So you can imagine I've seen a lot of technology from back in the day to what we have now.
What's the biggest change you think you've seen over the 35 years?
Just how, you can get these tanks dialed in so nice, where before, my first tank was a 20 gallon. And I can remember it was a 20 gallon with an under gravel filter with crushed coral and little power heads up on the lift tubes. So you can imagine that was not any kind of, that was a home for fish, but you couldn't grow any kind of corals and that kind of stuff. But nowadays with the technology, you can reproduce an ocean in your living room.
Well, and you certainly have a beautiful tank. Who or what influenced you to kind of get started in the hobby?
Well, back in the day, you really didn't have, it wasn't a big hobby back in the day, but they had some shops that I would go to on a regular basis, and people there, like, I'm gonna throw out Keith and Chip, when they first started Aquatic Specialties. I actually knew them two both when they worked at Aquarium Imports. So I saw them start their own store, and they were one of the stores that I would go to and buy on a regular basis.
Awesome, awesome. And so you said you've been in the hobby for 35 years. I mean,
years.
I feel like I've been in the hobby a long time, and you outdate me by a good bit. Who's been your biggest, like who's provided the most assistance to you as you've kind of gone along the way?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier. So one of my tanks that I had was a 150 gallon tank, and it was in the other room. And I actually, Bayou Reefkeeping worked the MACNA that was in New Orleans. So I was part of that, where I was volunteering to work over there. So I got to meet some of the vendors, and at the end of the MACNA, they gave me a bunch of coral. Here, try these sticks. I've never had a stick before, acro. So I brought them home, had them all, I probably put 100 sticks in my tank. And one by one, they were all turning brown. They were all dying, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So me and my wife took a ride to Aqua Hut. That was back when John owned it. And I walked in there, and I told him about my tank, and I said, what am I doing wrong? Well, first he said, all right, what are your levels? I'm like, what do you mean, what are my levels? He's like, phosphates, nitrates. I'm like, I have no idea. He said, and what kind of lights do you have? I said, they were little cheap Chinese LEDs. So he's like, so I asked him, I said, what do you recommend? What lights? He said, look around my store. Every tank in his store had a Radion. So from that point on, Radion's been my #1 light that I go to.
And you think John at Aqua Hut was probably your single biggest influence?
Well, he pushed me in the right direction.
Any other people that you would call out along the way as people who kind of, helped spur you on?
So I'm gonna give him a little shout out. His name is Sean. So back in 2019, me and Sean started building Aquatics by Nature. So it's a little store on Highway 59 in Mandeville. And Sean knew a lot about sticks. So I would sit there and I'd listen to him and I'd talk to him. And so I learned a lot about sticks from him. And I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to be known for my sticks. So those probably my two people that kind of gave me some direction.
Awesome. So tell us about the current tank. What's the size? What's the dimensions? Tell us a little bit about it.
All right, so you're looking at a 4-foot 120. So you have 4 foot, 2 foot front to back, 2 foot tall.
And it's 120 gallons. Is it a particular make on it?
It is, but I have no idea what it is.
You bought it new or used?
Actually, I bought it used.
Okay. And a cabinet is a custom-made cabinet, it looks like.
It is, well, so go back and in 2019 when me and Sean built the store, at some point a hurricane hit and Sean lost everything because of the power being out for so long. So everything this was his display and everything died. So I told him, I want it, if you're not going to set it back up, I want it at my house. Because you see it fits perfect right here.
Yeah, it looks nice.
So I brought it home, I redid the stand. It's really nice stand because I like the height.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, eye level is what you want to see with the tanks, and this really,
Right.
it really highlights the tank. How long has this tank been running?
Right now, 3 years.
3 years. Great growth I can see in there. Let's talk a little bit about the equipment within the tank. Do you have a controller first off?
I do.
What kind of controller do you have?
So I'm a very big hydros person.
Okay.
So there's been hydros on this since day one, and it's perfect. It's no glitches. It's been perfect ever since.
What do you run? What is the hydros control for you?
I can check everything. Anything to do with this tank, I can control it with my phone.
So pumps, lighting, does it test levels of, is there any testing that you do with it?
I do.
Okay. Lighting, which is the core of every SPS tank.
Yes.
And you said radions. I definitely see radions up there, and a fair number of them. Tell us about that. And it looks like you have some supplemental lighting as well.
So you see, I kind of went a little overboard with my lighting. So I do have 3 Radion Gen 4s, and it's on a hybrid fixture. So it also has 4 T5s, which I believe for sticks, you want to have T5s. Look at that. So the T5s, I believe, for his SPS is a must.
What lights are you running in the T5s? What
They're
bulbs?
just blue, just actinic blues.
The actinic blues, that's
Yes.
it?
Yep. And then as you can see, I have a Reef Bright, just gives a little more blue. And I have 2 Kessels, and they're both on blue because I really like the shimmer that it provides.
Okay. So you had halides at one point in time, I'm assuming, in your past.
Back in the day, yes.
Yeah.
Where you had to worry about the heat and
Yeah.
the electricity bill, and yes.
Okay. In terms of how you're lighting, in particular the radions, are you using AB Plus as your main lighting source, or have you tweaked?
So believe it or not, I'm running the Worldwide Coils light schedule.
Okay.
So for about a total of about 11 hours a day, the first half of the day is all white. So right now you see my radions are coming off all white and all my other light bulbs are off. So about halfway through the day, the whites will all change to blue, all my other blues will come on. So the second half of the day, my tank's all blue.
So just whites for part of the day and then just blues for part of the day.
Correct.
That's very interesting. I haven't checked out Worldwide Coral's settings, but that's very different than what I see a lot of people talking about running. Do you feel like that's helped growth?
I do, because the white's supposed to be the photosynthesis.
Yeah.
And then the blues will help them color up. So you're getting both parts of the day.
Interesting. That's and you said again, how long you run the lights on? 11 hours? Is that what you said?
Total 11 hours from startup to sunset.
To sunset. Do you have them ramp up and ramp down?
I do.
Okay. How long's the ramp up on that 11
It's an
hours?
hour.
About an hour on each side. And then it's maximum through the middle 9 hours
Correct.
of the day. Par readings. So what are your par readings that you're getting in the tank?
So if you look at the top of my sticks, I'm right at 500.
Okay.
Down in this corner where I have my Euphilia, I'm running about 200.
Okay. And then middle probably somewhere 300, 400,
Correct.
depending on
About
exactly where.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Flow. So I see you've got, it looks like 2 of the max specs in there and then 2 other pumps and then a return. Tell me a little bit about your flow.
So again, with sticks, they like a lot of flow. So right now I'm running 2 gyres, 1 4K, and 1 max spec 350. I have a octo pulse and I have a MP40.
Okay.
And all of these is controlled by hydros.
So Hydros is controlling the max specs as well as the.
Correct.
Wow. And then you have a return pump that I'm assuming is coming from the sump. What kind of return pump is
It's
it?
a Varios 4, which is
Varios.
also controlled by
And is it constant on the full time, or do you slow it down at certain times?
constant all. But I believe that, and I have my Varios dialed down really low, because I want my water going through my sump at a slow pace. So it comes in contact with more stuff. My wave makers is what's moving the water inside the tank.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you have a sump. Tell us a little bit about what you're running in your sump and the size of your sump.
Okay, it's a pretty big sump. It's 36 extra large. I have a clear roller that's controlled by Hydros.
A fleece roller.
A fleece roller.
Yep.
I have, of course, a skimmer that is run through a CO2 scrubber,
Okay.
because I need as much help keeping my pH up as I can. Also, there's a UV filter, and behind my tank is my calcium reactor.
In terms of the skimmer, what kind of skimmer is it?
It's an Octo.
Reef Octopus?
Reef Octopus, yes.
Do you know the model off the top of your head?
No.
Okay, that's fine. No big deal. And then no refugium. I didn't hear you mention refugium at all in that conversation.
Actually, the way my sump is made, there is a refugium spot, but I don't put anything in it because I want my nutrients up. I don't need any help keeping them down. In fact, at some points, I dose nitrates and phosphates just to keep them up.
Oh, that's interesting. We'll talk about that again in a little bit. Do you do regular water changes with this, or you I leave it be?
Nope, I do a 15-gallon water change every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Okay. And you're making, I assume, your own RODI water?
Yes.
Okay. And mixing your own salt. What kind of salt are you using?
I like the Fauna Marin.
All right. What about testing? What are you doing for testing in the tank?
Okay, well, every Monday I test for alkalinity, phosphates, and nitrates.
Every Monday, alkalinity,
every Monday.
phosphates, and nitrates.
Now, part of my Hydros is I have the IV set up. So it's testing alkalinity twice a day.
Okay.
Because, you know, with sticks, to me, alkalinity is the most important thing to keep it stable. So I want all that testing going on a regular basis.
Are you testing, one of the things I didn't hear you say testing was magnesium. You're not testing magnesium?
I am not, because of the fact that in my calcium reactor, I put a level of what's called remag. So as that's dissolving, it's putting mag into my tank.
Okay, that's interesting. Are you doing any other type of testing, even on an infrequent basis, either iodine, any of the smaller elements? You're doing ICP testing?
I do an ICP test once a month.
Okay, whose ICP tests are you using?
Fauna Marin.
Fauna Marin, okay. And have you changed any of your dosing of anything based off those ICP tests?
Well, I am, when it comes back and it tells me what I'm low on, I try to add some of that to bring it up.
What is the biggest thing of those additives that you feel like you're adding in that area?
It's a bunch of little stuff like zinc and, you know, the little trace elements that I'm adding.
Okay. Iodine, you didn't mention iodine, and I asked that because a lot of people talk about iodine as being one of the key elements. And
So one of the things I'm dosing on a daily basis is flatworm stop.
okay.
And one of the drawbacks of flatworm stop is it puts iodine in your water daily. So my iodine levels are always high.
Okay. You're dosing flatworm stop. You mentioned you have a calcium reactor.
Mm-hmm.
Or is there anything else that you're dosing on a regular
I'm also dosing amino acids.
Oh, that's interesting. Feel like that's helped the growth of the corals as well?
I think it gives it a nice balance.
Okay, that's very interesting. How much are you dosing of the amino acids for your tank?
I want to say it's around 10 mils every morning.
10 mils every morning. And is that an automatic dosing, or are you taking a syringe and...
No, that's automatic. So
Automatic.
I got flatworm stop automatic and the aminos automatically dosing.
Okay, let's talk about the parameters that you're running the tank
Okay.
at. What's the temperature that you're running at?
Right at 78.
Right at 78, and so fluctuation between 77 point something and 78 point
Correct.
something?
Correct.
Okay. Calcium, alk, what are you typically running those? I know you're
My
testing it.
calcium, again, with the calcium reactor, I don't really have to worry about that because as long as you get the alkalinity dialed in, everything else falls into place.
So what are you running your alk at then?
My last test, I want to say it was at 450.
So that's calcium. What about your alkalinity? 8?
Oh, 8.3 is what,
8.3.
what I shoot for.
Okay. I mean, none of us are perfect scientists. There's always a little bit of variation, but
And one of the problems with sticks you'll find is as they start growing, of course they consume more. So then my alkalinity will drop a little bit and I go in there and tweak my calcium reactor to dump a little more.
okay. What are you running your phosphates and nitrates at?
The last time I tested, my phosphates were 0.07
Okay.
and my nitrates were around 10. So anytime it gets below 10 is when I'll start dosing.
And are you dosing something like neonitrate to
Exactly.
Neonitrate,
Yep.
to high? And do you ever have to dose phosphates?
I really don't because I feed so heavy
Okay.
that usually the phosphates are there.
What are you running your salinity at?
35.
35.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else that from a testing level that jumps out at you that I haven't asked about yet that you would say this was important?
No, that covers about all of it.
Okay.
Like I said, alkalinity, if you can get that stable, and that's the key is getting it stable, everything else falls into place.
All right. Livestock. Tell us a little bit first about the fish that you have in the tank.
So I kind of counted them this morning, and I have right at 20 fish. And like I said, I tried feeding them heavy so it keeps the levels up.
Yeah. So I see chromis, blue-green chromis in there. I see a foxface, sailfin tang, a blue regal tang. It looks like a pair of clownfish. There's some other, what else is in there that I miss?
You got a Scopus tang, a sailfin tang, a Vimige, I can't say it.
That's okay. I probably can't say it either.
I got 3 chalk bass, as you can see in there. I got hawkfish, I got a 6-line wrasse, and a couple of cardinals.
Okay. Yeah, I see the pajama cardinal, at least one of them over there on the right
Yes.
side. Any inverts in the tank? Shrimp, crabs?
Really none.
Okay, just the clam that's sitting there toward.
I got 2 clams at the bottom. Just about all my snails have died off. I don't really have any kind of little crabs in there.
Okay, the one's a crocea. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right.
Right.
And then one's is that a Dursa clam?
A
there?
Dursa, and this is actually a Maxima.
Oh, it's a Maxima. Okay.
What as you can see, this one's not in the best spot. But
Yeah,
that's where he wants to be. And anytime I move him, he'll go right
He
back.
goes
to
right
that
back
same
there.
spot.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've noticed that clams, they like to find a spot and then they just want to be there. Tell us about, you've got a lot of corals in the tank. Tell us about what you've got from a coral perspective in the tank.
So you can see I call this tank a stick or acro dominant, but I do have some other stuff in here that I'll put in here because they can withstand the flow. Like my torches over here, I got them over here in the corner, and they're still moving a good bit, but I got so much flow in here that I got to worry about what corals I put in here that are not sticks.
You have this beautiful green candy cane over here on the right. What's growing behind the Dursa clam there?
This is actually an Easter egg chalice.
Okay. And then of the SPS, and there are obviously a lot of them, and I can name a couple of them like the Oregon Tort, and I can see the bubblegum digi, but what one stands out? What, you got a couple of favorites in there of your SPS? Or they're all my favorite?
So if you can see, I got a home wrecker right up here,
Okay.
right below the PC Rainbow. And Mike Tron, I got that from him about a year ago. And when I asked him for a piece, he gave me a piece. When I say the frag plug that he gave it on, I couldn't even see what was on it. It was so small, but Mike's a great guy. So I put it there, and as you can see, a year later, that's my growth out of a home wrecker, and it gets great colors.
Yeah, great colors.
I also have a couple of small Walt Disney's. So those are my three favorites.
Okay. What do you feed the tank?
All frozen food.
All
So,
frozen food. What
from brine shrimp, mysis, rods, you name it. I feed really heavy every night. I do put some coal food in there. I also put reef roids.
So you're feeding once a day in the evening?
Yes. When I get home from work, I'll feed the tank.
And then what are you feeding from a coral perspective?
The frozen coal food and reef roids.
Okay.
And all that goes in all at one time.
All at one
all
time.
At one time.
And do you shut off all the pumps,
I do.
including the return pump
I do.
at that point in time, and just let it all kind of go
Yep.
around in the tank?
Well, actually, even with the hydros, and when I hit the feed button, my MP40 will just run real slow.
Okay.
So, which is good because when I dump my food in, it gives it just a mixture where it kind of spreads out on the tank.
Okay. Have you had any challenges with the tank?
Believe it or not, the one challenge I have is my pH.
Okay.
So anytime you have a calcium reactor, it's dumping, the fluid is coming out
Very low.
6 point
Yeah.
something. So that takes your pH down, which, with acros, you want a high pH because that's going to give you more growth. So I'm struggling to keep my pH up. So my max during the day is about 8.2, which is not terrible, but I would love to get it higher.
Okay. What does it drop down to at night?
Like 7.5.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you've got a pretty big swing going
I do.
on between the two. Have you thought about, a lot of people dose calc at night to kind of offset that?
So my next project with this tank is a caulk stirrer.
Okay.
A caulk reactor. Because that's going to help, one, keep my alkalinity stable, and it'll help with my pH.
Have you, I'm sure over the past 35 years you have, but in this particular iteration of the tank, have you had any pests that have been introduced?
Believe it or not, I saw this morning that I got 3 little aptasia right here, so I got to start working on that. That's about it. That's really the only pest that I've lucked out. I'm gonna knock on wood that this tank's never had ick.
Nothing from a coral pest. A lot of people talk about red bugs or acro-eating flatworms. I mean, yours
I can't say that I'm 100%, but I try to dip all my corals before they go into this tank.
What do you do for your dips then?
I've done many different tries, different things. I got a new one that I just got recommended to me, and I'm going to have to tell you the name of that later.
Okay. You talked about future plans. One of the things is the calc stirrer. That's like, everybody, these are never ending projects. There's always seems like
Yes.
there's one more thing to do. So the calc stirrer, anything else that's on your, agenda for changes?
I'd like to add a few more of the more higher end sticks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Shift out some of the lower end. And
Yeah, as you can see, like my PC Rainbow, it's time to trim that because it's taking up a little bit too much space. So that will give me a little more space to add a few more corals.
Okay, so this is my favorite Louisiana specific question, and we just had the big snowstorm just this past week, which everybody was worried about losing power, but hurricanes are a never-ending worry.
Yep.
What do you do here in case there's a power loss?
So we're fortunate to have a whole house generator.
Okay.
So I don't have to worry about that. And I do have a spare, I lost my train of thought, sorry. A spare, I'll think of it, give me a second. The cooler.
Oh, so you have like a cooler that cools the
Yeah,
tank if
give me
it's...
a second. What's that called? Complete blank. So we won't worry about that.
That's
so
okay.
yes, a full house generator.
Full house generator. And it powers everything in the tank, also the AC for the house?
Correct. Whole house generator, yes.
Okay.
So we don't have to worry about that. We kind of sit back and we take it easy when it's no power.
And luckily you didn't lose power during the snowstorm?
We did not.
Okay, yeah, I was a little shocked. How much snow, just curious, how much snow did you guys actually get here?
Oh yeah, we got at least 6 inches.
Yeah, it was funny to see that in Louisiana. What's the best piece of advice that you feel like you got along the way?
I would say, and for my new people just starting out, don't skimp on lights and don't skimp on your filtration.
Okay. And what do you feel like is your greatest success in the tank? What do you feel most proud of?
I'd probably say my sticks.
Okay. And look, the growth in there is beautiful. I'm sure everybody will see it in the pictures that we take.
You know, I do like I said, I love my euphilia. I like some movement. But when you got to sit there and go, I got to have it perfect to grow sticks, because sticks are very unforgiving. What I do wrong today, 2 weeks from now is when they're going to start telling me that I did something wrong today. So you got to stay on top of your water changes and testing.
And then I got to ask the question, because it's the thing that keeps flashing at me. It says Turtle Reef.
Okay.
What's the story behind Turtle Reef?
So Turtle Reef is actually a dive location. Me and my wife are both scuba divers.
Oh, okay.
So we go to the Cayman Islands on a regular basis, and Turtle Reef is one of the dive spots. So I'd probably say maybe 100 of my 100 and something dives all at that one location. It's a beautiful, crystal clear part of the island where you put your tank, your gear on, you walk to the ladder, and you can dive right there. So
what's the neatest thing you've seen scuba diving?
Oh, you name it. I mean, there's a lot of, because
turtles.
Of Turtle Reef, there's turtles everywhere. That's where they're going when they come in to lay their eggs and stuff like that. So there's turtles all over the place. There's actually one location that you go out and you go over to the left, and it's under an overhang. There's probably about 100 tarpon that just sits there in circles. And they're so used to divers that you can go right through the middle of them, and they'll open up just enough to let you pass by. But it's really cool to see these tarpon that's probably bigger than you just letting you through.
Very, very cool. My last question. What didn't I ask you that I probably should have asked you?
Dave, I think you covered it all.
Well, look, Dave, and I appreciate the name. I really appreciated the time getting to know a little bit about you and your tank. Really anxious to see how this comes out, but thank you very much for inviting us into your home.
Thank you for coming in and let me show off my hobby.